All right, let's get started. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we ask at this time that we can just give our effort to you and grow in an understanding of the history of the church. Understand, Lord, what it took to get us where we are today, Lord, so that when we have freedoms to study your word, we have freedoms to talk to others about who you are, that we have freedoms to fulfill the mission you have put before us. We don't take for granted these freedoms, knowing that everyone in the world today still doesn't have these freedoms, Lord. So when you give it to us, we have responsibility. Lord, I ask that as the teacher, you would allow me to explain these things in a clear, concise way. That as the student, that although these things can at times seem to run together, they can become exciting because this is watching our spiritual ancestors grow, Lord, because it allows us to become who we are now. Jesus, we love you. We thank you. Help us, Holy Spirit. Be with us, Lord. For your name we pray. In Jesus, may all the glory come to you. Thank you, Jesus. For your name we pray, Master. Amen. All right, I don't know how to make this any more exciting because what today basically is a review of last week. And I didn't choose it, God did. So go to Acts 25. And remember, I had a theory on this. My theory is, why does Luke slow down and repeat so much information and get redundant and slow and monotonous and almost unbearable with his pace? What is my theory on that?
I don't know, you're probably getting old.
No, Dennis, that was actually funny. You know, that's loud, but no, that was very clever. No, he's giving you the psychological mindset of what Paul's life is like right now. Remember, Paul has been on an adventure since his conversion. Whether it be running for his life, whether it be traveling to spread the gospel, whether it be having freedom to go from place to place, whatever it be, he's had an adventurous life. Now he's what?
Locked up.
He's locked up. And he's in chains. And although he can have visitors, they're basically, they got to bring him his food. He can't get haircuts, which is bald, so it doesn't matter. But, he doesn't have access to, nice things, and he can't really go anywhere. And he's a very slow-paced, depressed, life's not going anywhere lifestyle right now. So what better way to get that across than to slow the text down and give you a feel for how Paul is feeling right here. Okay? Everything else is fast-paced because Paul had a fast-paced life. Everything's slow-paced here because Paul has a slow-paced life. Not only that, this is showing you, remember the promise that God has made. What is the promise God has made Paul? You will go where? Rome.
Yeah.
God has promised that. But when God promises something, there's a very intrinsic network of human decisions and human responsibilities that God still interacts with, sovereignly making things happen the way they have to happen, with her human responsibility, that in the end gets things where God has already determined them to go. You are getting a first-hand glance at how the intrinsic human responsibility, yet the providence of God, work out in human history. A lot, it wasn't just one decision. He didn't just go, I think I'll impact this one guy to send Paul there. How much had to happen for it to happen, yet God's plan still came to fruition. Let you know how much God is really in control. That's a huge lesson that often gets missed. We can't make this into 3-point happy little lessons simply because God didn't design that homiletic practice. Man did. Made it easy for you to remember. But in the process, we got watered down. And in the process, our denominations became as biblical. And in the process, we opened the door for not only heresy, but liberal ideas to dominate the church, even the Southern Baptist Convention. Because we were what? More concerned about 3-point sermons that made you feel better about yourself, that you could easily remember to send you on your way, that butchered scripture because it was too hard and we couldn't get you in, and you go elsewhere, and we pampered and we baited you, and we watered down the message, and we've lost the centrality of Jesus Christ. That's a problem. And that's why we're going to go over this, despite how boring and slow it is. Okay? All right. Keep all that in mind. So we will start by slowly going over this quickly, reviewing everything we got to do here, because we are in Acts 25, and all Acts 25 is two things that say the same thing. You've got the actual events, what is from verse 1 through 13, how they play out basically, and then you've got the reviewing of events, where Festus has to talk to Agrippa II. Hey man, I got to explain this to you because I need help writing a letter to the emperor. Okay? So what he's got to do is, he's got to explain the situation, which is going to set up not a legal trial, but simply a kind of hearing to where information can come out and Festus can get a Jewish perspective from Agrippa so he can get information to write Emperor Nero. Because guess what? When you write an emperor a letter, you want to get things right. Particularly when this letter legally requires you to explain the charges and the circumstances. And what has been the big problem so far?
They can't.
This don't make any sense. They can't really pinpoint anything. It don't make any sense to Festus because he's not a Jewish theologian. And all this is utterly confusing. But if you try to tell that to Nero, what Nero say? You got to do your job better, buddy. How dare you take my time? You're getting killed on the spot. Particularly, although Nero's in his good phase right now, we just don't quite know when his megalomaniac phase, when it begins to somewhat kick into the back of his mind. So we're not quite sure, because although records say he's good at this point, maybe there's word getting that he's going a little crazy by this. Well, we don't know. But one thing's for certain, you don't want to make the emperor mad. So you got to make information, got to get information, got to get things set under control. Now we know what year it is because Festus has just come into office. He has taken the place of who as governor? Who was the last governor? Think of that cat back in the cartoon days. Who was the last governor? Felix, very good. And although a lot of even pastors, good ones, confuse Felix and Festus, you guys will not. Although I might, I'm talking about it a lot. But I haven't yet, so that's where I don't. Okay? So Festus here has just taken office, which means it is what year? AD 59. Okay? Now, the thing about Festus, unlike a lot of other ones, according to Josephus, he was what?
He was a commoner that worked his way up.
Well, that would have been because that would have been Felix, who was a slave, whose connections did. Festus, according to Josephus, actually was a good ruler. And remember, Josephus did not talk about many Roman rulers over that area who was good. According to him, he dealt with things in a very, very just manner. We had revolts break out with the Sicarii across the countryside under Felix. But Festus comes in and he takes care of these revolts and these revolutionaries. Remember, who are the Sicarii? What does that name mean?
Assassins.
Assassins. Dagger men. The assassins means they use daggers. Dagger men. And at this point, they're running across the countryside and they're burning and plundering villages. Well, under Felix, you could give a bribe and get away with that. Under Festus, you cannot. You'll be stopped. Not only that, the Jews built a high wall where the political leaders can't look into their ceremonies. Well, most Romans would have done what? Gone on in with tanks and killed everybody. Yeah. But Festus doesn't. He handles it very, very in a just manner, according to Josephus. He doesn't go in and kill everybody. One way or another, he handles it the right way. Yeah, very good. So he seems to be good despite insurmountable odds in his life. Now, he's still a politician, and he's still going to make himself look better. But he is still well liked enough by the Jews, which is very rare for a Roman at this time. Okay, and the only reason he gets kicked out is not because he screws up. Remember, his predecessor Felix was kicked out for mishandling Jewish matters. Festus will not be. He actually could have maintained control for a while, but he dies in a mysterious illness in 62 AD. So he's only got a little bit of time that he rules, despite his ability to do it well. Well, today we're going to meet two other very important people, Agrippa and Bernice. Remember, Felix, the last guy who's lost office, whose name meant happy, was married to Drusilla. Who was Drusilla?
Young girl.
She would have been about 19 years old. But what was she known for? Her beauty. She was known for her beauty. And Felix did what? How did he maintain her? How did he get her? How did he get her as his wife?
He promised her the world.
He promised her the world. Because remember, in Latin, Felix means what? Happy. So guess what? He plays on his name. I'll make you happy, girl. That's what he does. He goes in there and does that. Plays on her name. Plays on that name. Now, Drusilla is the young sister of who? Bernice and Agrippa. Yeah. Agrippa the second here. We're going to see them today. Agrippa the second. Drusilla would have been 19 around this time period. Agrippa would have been 32, and Bernice would have been 31. We will see them all today. Right. And we will see, we'll bring it back up in a minute. There were rumors of Agrippa and Bernice having incestual relations. A lot of modern commentaries deny it, but DeYoung and some others think it happened. I think there's good enough evidence to say it's a real possibility.
Well, it was not that uncommon back then.
Right. And not only that, there is a Roman source that says they did. Modern historians try to say, well, at least some modern commentators try to say, that Roman source would have been equivalent to the National Enquirer. But you know what? The National Enquirer very often at least has some basis of truth with their stories.
Well, keep the Power in the family.
That's right. Yeah. Not only that, Josephus does say, and this is what the young thinks, and this is why I think it's at least good enough. Some people say he's wrong, but here's why I think it could be right. Josephus says that Bernice and Agrippa were guilty of unspeakable crimes, or they got caught for speaking about unspeakable crimes or something or other like this. And then, to counteract these unspeakable crimes, Bernice runs off and gets married. Well, to me, that kind of matches what unspeakable crimes the Jewish thought. That kind of goes with incest. And what better way to overcome an ancestral rumor than doing what? Running off and getting married. So, then it does make sense to me. We'll see more about them a little later, okay? Because they will come up. First, let's quickly review Acts 25, 1 through 3. Read Acts 25, 1 through 3. That's going to be important for today. So we'll quickly review all this. Acts 25, 1 through 3. Read that for us, Jacinda.
Now 3 days after Festus had arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul.
Okay, real quick. Who is the high priest at this point? Not Ananias, remember? He's not high priest anymore. Okay, think about this. Here's the name to remember. Think of Abraham's sons. Not Isaac. Who's the other famous? He's got a few sons, but who's the other famous son besides? No. Abraham's famous sons. Ishmael. So now we got a high priest named Ishmael. And remember, this causes a war between Jewish leadership at this time. Okay? But they've come back together to do what? Fight Paul. Yeah. And he's been in jail for 2 years. They don't care. Go ahead and keep going.
And they urged him, asking as a favor against Paul, that he summon men to Jerusalem, because they were planning an ambush to kill him on the way.
Let's go ahead and keep going.
Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea and that he himself intended to go there shortly. So he said, let the men of authority among you go down with me. And if there's anything wrong about the man, let them bring charges against him. Okay, so 2 things to remember. This is what we went over last week. We'll go over it quickly. The Jews asked for what? The Jewish leaders. The Jewish leaders asked for what?
Have him transferred.
And right. Under what? Under the Political Favor Act. You might as well call it a Political Favor Act. Because when you're in Rome, a new governor coming in, you've got to have these tribal chieftains on your side to maintain peace in this volatile area. And as a political favor, they could ask for anything. Remember, give us marble roads. We build our temple. But what do they say? Give us Paul. And so this is where divine intervention, in my opinion, has to happen. There's no reason why this guy wouldn't give them. And as a matter of fact, remember, he's going to be willing to give them in a minute. More than likely to say up here weak. Okay? So what he says is no, we'll do it on my terms. We'll do it in Caesarea. Get your delegation together. Let's go to Caesarea and we'll have that hearing. And so this is what happens here. This is going to be the hearing. Go ahead and start reading in verse, let's see here, 6. Go ahead and read in verse 6. Is that where it starts? Yeah. Verse 6 through 8. Read that for us.
After he stayed among them not more than 8 or 10 days, he went down to Caesarea. And the next day he took a seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. When he had arrived, the Jews had come down from Jerusalem, stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him. Though they could not prove it, Paul argued in his defense, neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offense. So it's a very dangerous situation. The Jews literally surround him. They're bringing the accusations, but remember, they're seemingly coming across very emotional. Okay? And when you're very emotional, you sometimes lose focus and get disorganized. This seems to have happened at this point. Paul responds against at least 3 of these. Is what he's going to say right here. I'm not anti-Torah. I'm not saying stop teaching Torah. Okay, just to the eyes of Jesus. I'm not anti-temple. I'm fine with worshiping the temple. Matter of fact, he earlier explained he had his vision at the temple. And I'm not against Caesar, which means he's getting accused of sedition one way or another and treason one way or another. And it's very possible at this point they're trying to say he endorses another king. Who would be the other king that he endorsed? Jesus. Right. But he's going to make clear that's not that kind of king. He runs the world, but he didn't care about Rome. He could have had that if he wanted it. He just didn't. He's going to do it another way, in his way, at his time. Go ahead and go verse 9 through 11. But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favor, said to Paul, do you wish to go to Jerusalem, and there be tried on these charges before me? But Paul said, I am standing before Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you yourself know very well. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything for which I deserve to die. I do not seek to escape death, but if there is nothing to their charges against me, no one can give me up to them. I appeal to Caesar.
Okay, we'll go, the details we went over last week. When I get it on YouTube, you go back and listen to it. So I won't go to the details again. All you need to know is, does Paul trust Festus at this point? No. And it even says right here that Festus is doing this what? To do what?
Political favor.
Political favor. So he's going to do it, but he's going to do it his way. Paul doesn't trust him, so he appeals to the legal right of what? What's he say? Caesar. That's right. He says, I don't trust this situation. I want to go to Rome. He wants, well, the Latin word is like provocatio. Okay? All right, y'all got that? Provocatio is what it's called. All right, sound good to you? Everybody sound good to you, Beth? Sound like a good Latin term for you? Yeah, there you go. All right. That's what we got right there. That is simply appealing to verdicts. There's a lot written on this. I'm not going to go into it. One guy who explains how this plays out nicely, if you want the details, is going to be Schnabel. This is going to be a Roman citizen's right to where you appeal to a higher court. This probably goes back to the Republic even before you had Caesars, it seems to at least. And inevitably it was appealing to a jury of your peers. Now, Judea itself would not have had probably enough to have Roman citizen peers. But even then, by this time, it's very possible that once you had the emperor, he became the jury of your peers. Okay? So one way or another, he's appealing to this right. It's all perfectly historical. There's some question about could you do this in the middle of the trial or not. Because remember, verdict hadn't been passed yet, but there's nothing against that. So this all makes sense. Who's the emperor he appeals to here again? Nero. We'll come up again later. It's going to be important. I'll explain more about him in a second. So we've had the appeal. In verse 12, remember, at this point, Festus can still decline it. He doesn't have to do this. He can decline it. We'll see verse 12 again. Go ahead and go verse 12.
Then Festus, when he had conferred with his council, answered, to Caesar you have appealed, to Caesar you shall go.
So this stops the current trial, and it effectively, legally speaking, is going to remove Paul from the influence of all Jewish authorities, including anything over Judea itself. He is no longer legally, once this has been granted, to say this. Now, he can release him still, but he can no longer really do any of the charges at this point, okay? But, as we all know, if he released them, what would the Jews do? They'd cause a riot in Jerusalem, but you don't want that. So all that's not really an option at this point. So now what we're going to have, this big next section, is repeating all that again from Festus' perspective as he talks to Agrippa to get information about the letter needed for the prisoner transfer. Okay? That's why this is so important. It's slowing down again. It's going to repeat all that because God thought it was important enough for you to see it twice. All right? That, the fact we got to slow things down because Luke wants you to feel how psychologically messed up Paul is probably in the head right now, and how God takes all these intrinsic, individual, different human choices and does what? Wraps them into his overall greater plan anyway. Okay? All right. Go ahead and read verse 13.
Now when some days had passed, Agrippa the king and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus.
All right, now keep in mind that Agrippa didn't get along with Felix very well. Not as well. He was mad at Felix. Because, remember, Agrippa is the one who did that political arrangement. And Felix undercut him. So he wasn't buddy with Felix. But him and Festus become buddies. They become pretty decent friends, it seems like, okay? And this is here, they're beginning to meet each other. Agrippa's gonna come in with, he's the king. He's the king of what? He is going to be the client king of the northern regions of Palestine. Now remember, this is Agrippa II. He would have been known as Marcus Julius Agrippa. He would have been educated in Rome. He had a good Roman background. He'd been 32 years at this point. He was known to be very pious in Jewish matters. Very, very loyal to Rome. He was their expert on Jewish matters. He was so loyal to Rome, and so much so when they trusted, that even after the Jews revolted in the 66 AD revolt, and which even eventually led to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, he was so loyal to Rome, even though those under him revolted, Rome allowed him to keep his office, because he was just that trustworthy. He was a valuable asset they could not replace, and they felt he deserved everything that he got and that he could be depended upon. You can't help it as long as you try to keep people from revolting. Matter of fact, you probably went to Rome and tried to help them out in the process, okay? All right, so he is going to be the Roman expert on Jewish matters. Bernice is going to be the 31-year-old sister. She has had a couple of failed marriages by this point. One of them being with who? Who we say last week? Who'd she get married to? Her uncle. Okay? She got married to her uncle. And then she possibly has incestuous relations with her brother. So she's a good one. And then inevitably, remember her story? She inevitably becomes the mistresses of 2 Roman generals. The last one being Titus, who's a Roman general who destroys Jerusalem, who promises her what? What does he promise her? Anybody remember? He says, if I ever become emperor, you could do what? You could be my wife. You could be the empress. You could be my wife. So when he becomes emperor, she gets contacted. And as she's coming to become the empress, remember this? What happens? Because as she's coming, his advisors go, do not let a Jew have this kind of power or revolt against you. So when she gets to the palace, she does what? She knocks on the door. What happens? What happens when she knocks on the door? Nobody answers. They really don't answer. And she eventually realizes she has been spurned and goes back to her brother again. So this is the story of Bernice. She's very interesting, okay? Now verse 14 through 16. Go ahead and read that for us.
And as I say there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, there is a man left prisoner by Felix. And when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone. Before the accused met the accusers face to face and had opportunity to make his defense concerning the charge laid against him.
So verse 14 is just going to start out telling how Festus is going to use the visit as a political occasion for his own benefit. He is going to consult with Agrippa. Because Agrippa's what? 2 things. Agrippa's 2 things. What is it? What 2 very important roles is he going to play? Why would you consult with him? Because he's what? He's an expert on what? Jewish matters. And he's trustworthy to who? Romans. What better person to talk to about this? The absolute ideal person right here, okay? And then we got verse 15 through 16. We're going to recount verses 1 through 12 basically. With verse 15 telling us in more detail that the Jewish leaders demanded a sentence of condemnation. What do you think that means? The death sentence. They demanded a conviction that would lead to the death sentence. And they didn't ask for it. They demanded it. So the first thing to do is demand from this guy, you better kill this Paul guy. That's what they said. So this is a little bit new information here. Verse 16 recounts Festus' answer to the demand. Where notice what he says. He refuses based on invoking Roman law. He says, Agrippa, I would have, but you know what? I got to keep Roman law. Okay? Yeah, because he's not going to mention this favor the whole time. Okay? But he's like, me being the good Roman judge that I am, knew I must uphold Roman law. And in Roman law, the defendant has the right to personally face his accusers. And in no way, shape, or fashion can I present a man as a present to his accusers. That's how he words it here in the Greek. I'm not going to present a present, but you know why? I'm a good, just Roman judge. This is what he's saying at this point, presenting himself in this manner. Verse 17 through 18.
So when they came together here, I made no delay, and on the next day took my seat on the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought. When the accusers stood up, they brought no charge in his case of such evils as I supposed.
So Festus is going to explain here how he acted with prompt efficiency. And not wanting to postpone this matter of dire situations within his jurisdiction, he begins the case right away. He could have postponed, but he didn't. He knew it was important. And as a good judge like he is not going to postpone the case. But then he lets it be known, although he expected serious charges of social anarchy, when the case is laid out, he quickly realizes that this doesn't match any normal crimes that he as a Roman judge has ever handled before. Okay? He's expecting them to throw the kitchen sink at this guy on political and social matters. The way they've been talking about him, it was going to be an open and shut case. It was going to be good to go. But as soon as it starts happening, this just didn't match anything he had seen before. And as a matter of fact, this is getting at that it wasn't political or social. As a matter of fact, some commentators think, the way this is worded, that the Jews at this point actually reference an older Roman law or a former Roman legal decision from Julius Caesar himself, who allowed the Jews to handle their own religious matters and demanded Paul be handed over based on this old legal sentence. Kind of like, you see that you write your books, V verse W, 1982, It's like they pulled this out and they're trying to use this on them, going, well, based on this court case right here, the precedence is, you must hand us Paul. Paul. And he's going, this don't make no sense to me. What are you talking about? We never studied this in law school. This is just kind of out the window to him. And then verse 19 takes over. Read that one.
Rather, they had certain points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who is dead and whom Paul asserted to be alive.
Well, if there was any doubt that this is about religious matters, and that's what we're referring to, verse 19 clears it up. Festus is making it clear he was very aware this whole thing's about religion. And he says their own religion. This is referring to the Jewish faith, Jewish theology, and Jewish cultic practices. In particular, they're having a disagreement about who? This man named Jesus. This man named Jesus, who the Jewish authorities, and the Greek goes like this, they have insisted that he has died, that he was buried, and that he remains in a state of death. But Paul insists that he's alive, although he doesn't deny that he was previously in the state of death. And why what? Resurrection, which that's a huge problem for Festus. It was incomprehensible because for Festus, it's either a matter of two things. Is Jesus dead or is he alive? Which one is it? He can't be both. What is he, a dead or alive? Because resurrection is not an option that really confuses him. To the Romans, if you talk about bodily resurrection, do you know what would have come to mind to them?
Crazy.
Zombies. Zombies. They would have literally, they thought you were crazy, or they would have pictured zombies. They couldn't have handled it in their mind. Either you are crazy, or what you're going to imagine is, when you're thinking about it, is what we would call zombies.
Yeah.
And they're going, how do
The movie can't come out.
There you go. Yeah. Ancient zombie movies. So that, right, before zombies, this then their mind how they'd have to imagine it. So that leads to verse 20. Read verse 20 for us.
Being at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem, and he tried there regarding them.
Okay, verse 20, it's Festus admitting to Agrippa he's at a loss how to investigate this question. Meaning he has doubts how to handle the situation, and he doesn't even know where to start. How do you investigate resurrection? How do I investigate zombies? Let's go investigate zombies. How do we do that? That's what he's saying at this point. I didn't know what to do. I'm no Jewish theologian, and this whole thing is beyond my realm of expertise. We didn't study this in Roman law school, so I don't know what to do with this one. And this is what he's saying right here. So I thought it would be wise, that's how he kind of implies here, to defer to the experts. Okay? I'm not an expert, so I thought I'd defer to the expert. So I asked Paul if he wanted to go to Jerusalem, where he could stand trial before those who understood these kind of things, those who understood these kind of beliefs, and those who understood what he was talking about when he said that Jesus had died and come to life. It made no sense to him, so I would defer to the experts on this matter. Totally omitting the fact that it was his whole transference idea was what? A political favor. He never mentions that. He just says, I thought it'd be better to send them here because they understood it more than me. This is how he words it at this point, okay? Which leads to verse 21.
But when Paul had appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar.
Basically, this is a repeat of verse 10 through 11, where Festus explains that Paul insisted in his stand trial before the emperor, saying he appealed to be kept in custody, for the decision of the emperor means he's still in custody because he wanted to be kept in custody to go to the emperor himself, with decision referring to a judicial investigation that culminates in an official verdict, and the emperor being Nero, Claudius, Caesar, Augustus, Germanicus. Okay? Now, a little bit about that real quick. Remember, his reign was divided into two eras. The first 5, when he had some philosophical teachers, was considered the golden reign, the golden age. The last years was considered, he was a paranoid megalomaniac where he did some crazy things, but they were all crazy, but he was really out there. Really, at this point, he began to be known for overspending on building projects, extravagant building projects. He also was known to be someone who loved to do plays and thought he was athletic and thought he was a bunch of... He went to Greece at one time and enrolled in the Greece Olympics. And because he showed up, they gave him all the gold medals, basically, in modern day terms, how we say it. And in return, he released them from taxation. So it was a good, he gets all the gold medals, and they get released from taxes. So it all worked out for everybody. Except while he was gone, they were pretty much plotting his removal from Caesarship. That's a different story. But he was known for overspending, okay, on building projects. Well, inevitably, someone close to him starts this fire because they want to rebuild over the ashes. Well, this fire begins to burn down Rome, okay? And people are trying to put it out, but they are stopped from putting it out. And it kills a lot, kills people, does a lot of damage. And they're doing it just to rebuild over the ashes, despite who it hurts, okay? While this is going on, there's a lot of legends do this. Some people say Nero wasn't there, but one legend said he played a fiddle, but that's fiddle wasn't invented yet. But Suetonius says, and it's usually pretty reliable, that he dressed in his stage costume and he sang a song from his tower as he watched the city burn, beginning to show his spiraling to madness, however you want to put that, okay? And then, when it gets back around, that he at the very least didn't stop it and could have done something about it, well, people don't like that too much. So he's got to find a scapegoat. So according to tradition, do you remember who the scapegoat was? Who he accuses of burning the city? The Christians. And this starts the great Christian persecution, okay, in 64 AD. So inevitably what's going to happen here is although Nero himself started out good, he gets really bad. And all that Paul appeals to him here, inevitably once he goes into his madman state and he becomes this great Christian persecutor to where he was known to dress Christians up in wild animal skins and release lions on them, to where he was known to crucify and burn them alive. And he was the guy who inevitably would kill Peter and Paul. It's this guy. He was the guy who became a prototype for the Antichrist. This guy. He's the guy who 666 probably needs new Nero. It's this guy. At this point, seemed to be doing a little bit okay. And Paul appeals to him and says, let me go to him for trial. Now, this is all ironic because inevitably who kills Paul? This guy. So this is what's kind of funny about all this, okay? If you know all that history in hindsight, how it plays out. Well, back to Festus' letter, he says, and the only reason I'm keeping Paul in custody is because I've made the arrangements based on his own request, basically. Well, the thing is, at this point, Festus can still release him because he knows he's innocent, but he's not going to, because if he did, what would the Jews do? They'd revolt and maybe ask for his death and get him removed one way or another. Now I got verse 22, and we're moving along here. Verse 22.
Then Agrippa said to Festus, I would like to hear the man whom myself. Tomorrow, said he, you will hear him.
Okay, this is Agrippa saying, I understand what you're asking. You're asking for my help. You need my help on this. You're requesting my counsel on this, and guess what? It just so happens this Paul guy, I don't want to hear him anyway. So how about you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and this will all work out. And so Festus right away says, okay, sounds good to me. Tomorrow we'll make it happen. Wasting no time whatsoever. You got to change your mind, buddy. We're going to make this happen. So tomorrow we're going to do this. This leads to verse 23. Read verse 23.
So on the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp, and they entered the audience hall of the military tribunes and the prominent men of the city. Then at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in.
Okay, two things on this. One, all right, Beth, maybe you'll know this. No one else might know. We'll see. This right here, he's brought in to the audience hall. In the Greek, this refers to the Hall of Justice. Does anybody know where the Hall of Justice, from what comic book that comes from? So I always imagine this. This is how I remember this. Justice League. No one knows that? So he's about to go. He's about to be... Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hall of Justice. Yeah. So he's about to go stand trial between Superman, Batman, and Aquaman. That's what's about to happen right here, guys. Just so you know, maybe Flash, Wonder Woman as well. That's where this term comes from, just so you guys know. This is the audience hall of Justice. Yeah, Comic-Con theology. So there you go. All right. Anyway, look at it. This, how you need to imagine this. This is a very big, flamboyant entry. Maybe you've seen movies before or cartoons or something. When the king arrives,
all the horns, blood.
Very good.
All the flags, blood.
Flags are flying.
Everybody of any kind of importance is there. So
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. That's what this is. Anybody who's anybody in Caesarea is there. They're rolling out the red carpet. They're waving the flags. They're blowing the horns. You know, they're having the dances. You name it, they're doing it. They're dressed in the big royal regalia. They're coming out. It's a big thing. It's meant to be. It's huge. Yes, it's an event. And it's a huge, expensive, but this is all part of it. And who's all going to be there for certain is going to be Festus, who's huge, Agrippa and Bernice, great power, the military commander of 5 cohorts, which is going to be top dog generals, okay? And then prominent men of the city, both Jewish and Greek, the Jewish and Greek aristocracy of Caesarea. If you got money, you're there. And you're all part of this, okay? It's all part of this right here. And the whole purpose is going to be what? We are going to let all of you hear this, and I'll give advice, but we want Agrippa to hear this because Festus needs what? He needs help what? Writing his letter to Nero, because he don't want to die, and he's got to send Paul. So that's what all this plays off right here. Now go on and read verse 24 to 27. We'll wrap it up.
And Festus said, King Agrippa and all who are present with us, you see this man about whom the whole Jewish people petitioned me both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he had done nothing deserving death, and as he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to go ahead and send him. But I have nothing definite to write to my lord about him. Therefore I have brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we have examined him, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charges against him.
I'll log off without words. You mean it seems unreasonable, or you think it means it's illegal to do such a thing and you die because of it? How about we spell like it is here? All right, now Dennis asked last week, is it all the Jews or some of the Jews? Well, it's just some of the Jews, but you see right here how this whole thing is being played. You see verse 24? Everybody, what's that say? About whom the whole Jewish people? Now Dennis was right. It wasn't all the Jewish people. This is probably hyperbole, but it certainly refers to the Jewish leadership. And that's how it's meant to be viewed as, okay? So although it's not all the Jews, there's good ones. The reason why we say the Jews is because how Luke wants us to view it with this right here, okay? This is, and even how Agrippa probably words it, and how it would have been viewed at that time. It didn't matter if he had some Jews on the side, the majority were not. And that's what it's saying with that phrase right there. You get to see that, okay? Now, this is going to remind us about three major points. One is going to be how the Jews demanded for a death sentence against him. They no longer thought that he should be able to live. There's a Greek term, and it should be translated, he should be exterminated. Wiped off the planet. He deserved to be exterminated like a bug. That's what they're saying right here. He does not deserve to live. Then, unlike all the other times that have been implied, this becomes clear. This is one of the first times there's no doubt, no anything about it. It becomes clear, the governor's opinion. The governor's opinion is, clearly here, he thinks Paul is innocent. This is the first, well, other times it's been hinted at that there's been other things associated with it where they wouldn't come out and say it, whether it be Lysias or Felix or other people. This is clear. Festus says straight up, he thinks Paul is innocent of the charges, whatever they may be. He thinks he's innocent, okay? He thinks he's found no legal reason for the death penalty. He's saying that at the very least, okay? And then he explains how Paul appealed to the emperor, and he granted that appeal. He then announces the purpose of the hearing is to get needed information in order to explain the charges against Paul and his letter to Nero, okay? Now, taken as a whole, this letter must contain these things. Notice that appeal has been lodged. What surrounds that? The name of the person lodging the appeal, what surrounds him. The sentence that is being contested. This is the hard part right here. The name, identity of the parties involved and everything that's going on with it, okay? Basically, this didn't impact the outcome of the case, but it was legally required, and it was legally required that Festus be able to report the circumstances and details of the appeal, which would require him giving the specific charges against Paul. What's the problem with that? We ain't got no specific charges against Paul. So especially deserving the death penalty. So what this is going to do here is he wants to get the specific charges surrounding the death penalty from a Jewish perspective. Well, Agrippa, how should I word this? Okay? And then what he's going to do, because he's also required to do this, he's going to explain why he personally didn't release Paul based on how Agrippa explains it from a Jewish perspective, even though he himself didn't find him guilty of any political crimes. So he needs this Jewish perspective to explain it so he can explain himself. Because he's also got to explain why, if you think this guy's innocent, are you going to say that? Or are you going to explain why he ain't released and what's going on? So he's going to have to word what he's got to say next based on how Agrippa describes it to him. Okay? We will get into what happens then in Acts 26, where Paul gives his defense. And what is Paul going to do pretty much? He's going to tell of his conversion. He's going to explain he can't help it, God made him do it. And he's going to witness about Jesus Christ in this whole process. And that's what it's going to turn into. Which is really why God allowed it to happen the way He wanted it to happen, because this is going to turn into one big evangelistic event by Paul. Alright? Alright, any questions? You got it all right? So I'll give you a pop quiz on this, coming up soon, alright? I know you guys are going to your cruise, you're going to talk about this the whole time, aren't you? You're going to talk about this the whole time. You're going to sit back and you're going to discuss theologies and sit by the pool. And you're going to talk about was Festus legally correct in his decision. So there you go. There you go. You got it. And Beth will never forget the Common Count Theology Hall of Justice again. There we go. Good job. All right, no questions, right? All right, we're good. We'll stop this now.